Living through the Blitz, my mother's story of what it was like growing up in London in the Second World War. Part 1, What It's Like to be Bombed.
In 1939, war was declared because Hitler was rampaging across Europe, and when he entered Poland, we were allied with Poland, and so Britain declared war. And we were all listening to the radio, and they declared that war had started at 11 o'clock in the morning on the 3rd of September. We went outside, and no sooner out there than the air raid sirens went. And as it turned out, it was a false alarm, but it was frightening. And my father said, "You watch the trees over there, which were just above a ruined abbey," and he said, "You'll see aircraft coming over and dropping bombs." My mother was called up to do war work, so she ended up as a nurse in the Brook Hospital Woolwich again, and she had to travel by tram. By then, it wasn't just the bombs, the doodlebugs had started, and they were like small flying aircraft without a pilot, and they had fire coming out of their tail. And when the engine stopped, that just fell out of the sky, and you wouldn't know where it would go. Everybody would watch and listen, and when the silence came, took cover, it looked as if it was near you, and one fell on the tram my mum was in. And she was blown with it, but she was very lucky in a way, but it was terrifying. The tram blew apart, and she went down into the workings of it, and she was only really hurt on her face, but it shot her nerves to pieces. She couldn't really face going up there again. It really did upset her. But we used to see them coming over and go out and garden, and sometimes the Spitfires and that would be attacking German bombers and German fighters, and you were conditioned not to think of them as people. You'd really cheer when one came down and hit the ground, you know, that it wasn't a person then there. You were just conditioned to hate them, really. But it was all very exciting in a sense.
And how did that affect your mum being hit in the pit?
She was cut on the face really badly, but she really was up. Her nerves were shot to pieces. She'd wake in the night screaming, whether she was screaming of it all happening again or whether it was just reaction, but she never really got over it. It really shot her nerves to pieces. She's a very strong woman, and it would take a lot to put her back, but it really, being blown like that must have been terrifying. And I don't know how many died in the tram, because that's not something she ever told us, because we were only youngsters, and they used to try and keep the worst news away from us. But it was really a bad time. But we did like to watch them being brought down, and that sometimes with these doodlebugs, they wouldn't get as far as they wanted. The planes would come and tilt their rings and knock them off course, and that was very, very daring of the pilots, because it could have gone the other way and really damaged them. But they were very nasty things. There was something that followed, but I wasn't there then, and they were rockets, and you didn't even hear them coming. But luckily we'd gone to Scotland by then. One night it was very heavy rain, bombing was getting very close, and then there was a most enormous explosion, and it was only 4 doors away from us, and it had been a direct hit on the shelter. The friends that lived there, and sisters and brother-in-law and the parents and 2 little babies, and the shelter had the direct hit, and the babies lived because all the family threw themselves on top of them. They must have heard the bomb coming, and these 2 little ones were saved. But there were so many bombs like that, but we went to investigate, and we were forbidden, but we did. And there was a tin hat and teeth and a bit of brains, and it was awful, the awful feeling, but we couldn't say too much because we shouldn't have been there.